Okay, so for today's tutorial, we're gonna make this cute little moon sun catcher. It's on a 6-inch chain with a lobster clasp. I do that because in my state it's legal to have decorations for your rear view mirror. And so with that lobster clasp, they can wrap it around their rear view mirror and then open and close that clasp on any of the openings in the chain. But a lot of people like them hanging this size from like hanging plants, you know, like it catches the sun up there and it looks great with the greenery. So there's a lot of uses for these little ones beyond just your rear view mirror. And you could put it on a really long chain if you wanted to hang it somewhere high. I don't run your life. You do what you want. All right, so it's a little silver baby moon, like what is that, 2 inches, maybe 3, amethyst chip beads, and this really fun chain that is incredibly delicate. And that worries me because people are not always delicate with their sun catchers. But so far, nobody's had any issues. So I'm gonna keep using it because it's cute as fuck. All right, so let's get to it. Okay, so here's everything we're gonna need. I've got 8mm jump rings. I've got a 3.5 to 4.5 millimeter chain cut to 6 inches. When I'm deciding on chain, I want something sturdy. This is what I hang even my biggest sun catchers from. I use a more delicate chain for decoration. This is the main chain that holds up the sun catcher. So 6 inches or so, lobster clasp, 22 gauge. I always use Anezus. I'm using a silver today. And I'm gonna use, I think it's 24 inches of wire, and I'm gonna guess that's too much. So I'll pop up some words on the screen that tell you the proper length if I used way too much. So you don't use way too much. I hate wasted wire. Then I've got these beautiful amethyst chip beads. I just love them. I never was a purple person, but this amethyst stuff is just really calling my name. Who doesn't love that? These tiny little star crystals, they're only have one hole, so they're only to hang on the end. We're gonna hang them on the end of this really fancy little star and moon chain. It's very delicate, so I don't use it on any sun catchers except for these little mini ones because I don't trust it. So, and I wouldn't hang anything much bigger than that on the end once again because it's just the way it's connected. It's just really delicate little chain. So don't be rough with it. Don't hang something heavy from it. Then we've got this little moon silver frame. I did not realize when I ordered that the weld marks on each end were gonna be visible, but I'm gonna show you how to make that much less visible. It doesn't completely hide it, but it just makes it not such an eyesore. Then I've got 2 pairs of Xuron pliers and my wire cutters. I've already cut my wires, so I don't really need the wire cutters. But if you were pulling it off the spool, you'd need to be able to cut it. So then I'm gonna put my wire into my frame right here on the end. I'm gonna do, I don't know, maybe 3 inches and wrap it right around that little end. You see how there's a little space between this part of the metal and this part of the metal? That's where I want my wire to be really tight in. Then you're probably like, why do you have all this excess? That seems wasteful and you hate wasting. Well, you're not wrong, but it's not gonna be wasted. Then we're gonna go around, and this can be tricky because it needs to be tight, but not so tight that you pull it off. So I'm gonna take my pliers and push it back a little bit. Around and around. And you just, you know, I like it to be really close together like that so it looks very intentional. It doesn't look like, oops, there's just extra wire. It looks like this is part of the design. And I don't really like what that end is doing. So I'm just gonna take off the very end, smash it into my frame. There we go. So now it looks more like a design feature than a flaw. Then I'm gonna take the rest of my wire and we're gonna start loading up the middle of it with our chip beads. Now, some areas I wanna use bigger chip beads, some areas I wanna use thinner or like tinier chip beads. And it is much easier to view them for size if you just pile them all over your desk like I'm doing and have them fall everywhere. So there's only a little space right at these tips. So I'm gonna have to use a really small chip bead. So here's a good one. And hot tip, put the chip bead in your hand and then put the wire in the hole, because if you're holding the chip bead trying to find the hole, chip bead holes are just really irregular and you'll just struggle. Maybe it's because I shake. Maybe you won't struggle, but if you shake, you might struggle. So that's my hot tip. So now I've got this little chip bead on my wire and you can see where the wrap is coming over. Now I'm going to see where that can fit, put my wire through. So now my wire is coming out and around, and then I'm gonna go through the other side. So we're creating where it comes out this side. So over and then under, over and then under. And that is going to keep it in that spot. If I went over every time, the chip beads would be too likely to push one direction or the other. So you're always going through your frame and around it. So now I've got my over here. And then this is where, you know, you kind of got to play around. Like sometimes all the chip beads I choose are just a perfect fit and it goes really quick. Other times I've really got to trial and error a lot by putting some on, taking some off, because you want them to fit pretty snug. So that's about perfect. Do you see what I mean? How those two fit in that amount of space? That one fits in that amount of space, those two fit in that amount of space without there being any just visible wire. You know, you want it to look like chip beads as much as possible and the wire to be pretty invisible. So now my wire is going under. Here's where I've got my beads. So I'm gonna put them right in that space, go over and through, and then we're gonna do it again. So now we're gonna be able to use a little bit bigger chip beads. This one might be way too big, but let's just see what happens. And I try to keep it pretty random, but I'll be honest, like if I have like a really dark purple one, I'll try to make the next one a light purple one. But size ends up being the biggest deciding factor. Because these chip beads are all irregular, as chip beads are. So see how like that looks like it fits pretty well, but there's that space right there. I don't love that. So I'm gonna see if I can get another really tiny, this one's not tiny, but it's thin. Let's see. Yeah, I like that better. And so I've just loaded up it comes over here, loaded up my wire, and now I'm gonna go, my wire is in the frame, and I'm gonna go around the outside and then through again. And we're just gonna create the zigzag pattern going back and forth. At first, it really tripped me up where I was like, it just doesn't look like filled enough with the zigzag, but once you kind of get a good clean pattern going, the zigzag is a feature, not a bug, you know. See, I'm doing it the wrong way. It's too hard to do it that way. Also, where's the hole to this bead? There we go. Oh, almost lost it all. All right. Did we just match it the first time? Hell yeah, we did. Okay, so I've loaded my wire. I'm over the frame, loaded my wire. I'm through it, and then I'm gonna go around the top of the frame and through again. So now you can start seeing how it's kind of a zigzag. And I really play because however big the beads are is going to, you know, make it fit differently because these are all such irregular sizes. So I like that one is so wide because it fills in that space between those two zigzags. It's not like it's always gonna sit right there, but once it's tight, they pretty well stay where they are. All right, so now we're through, we're in the middle of the frame again, where we always start when we're loading our beads. And now we need big beads. And that one's too clear. because it's the biggest amount of space. I mean, this is a tiny little moon, as you can tell by how it compares to my hand. But compared to the corners of the moon, which are really small, we're filling a much bigger space. So I'm going to guess this isn't enough. Nope. So you see what I mean by not enough? You see that space right there? That's what we need to fill. And most of those are light, so I want to put a darker purple bead on. Did I go too big? Fly too close to the sun? Nah, I think that's great. Perfect. So I'm going to come, I always want to say cord. I haven't even done macrame in weeks, but I still want to say cord. My wire through the frame. I'm going to come on the outside and then go through again. And now you can really start seeing our zigzag pattern. So we're still in the big part, so I'm going to utilize these big chip beads. And so I don't waste them, I have certain things that I like to use little chip beads. Those are too similar. And I have certain things, like if I'm making a little tree like the last tutorial, I want small chip beads. If I'm wrapping the outside of a hoop, I want really big chip beads. If I'm doing this, I want to mix. So don't feel like, oh, I'm using so many big chip beads, but what about all the little ones? There is a project for those. Okay, so now I did too much. I actually hate that wide piece sitting next to that wide piece. So I'm going to literally take all of them off and perhaps do them in the reverse order. So I'll do my more narrow chip beads at the part where it meets the other wire the most. And then I'll do my wide chip bead at the part where the zigzag is the furthest apart. So you see what I mean by that? That is close to that. This has room to be a big old bead, but I need a tiny little something. There's just a little bit of space that's not totally filled. So I'm going to do a really thin one, and perfect. So see how that fits? Nice. Yes. So my wire's loaded and through the frame. I'm going to push them all down, come on the outside and go through. And you see it moving all around at first. That's okay. Now, I think to make a nice even zigzag, it's really important to keep checking your work. I definitely wouldn't just go and fill it. Like if I was wrapping a hoop on the outsides of it, I would just go and, pay attention as I go. This, I really want to stop every now and again and see where these lines are hitting. So it's going to look balanced when I'm done. So that looks nice. Now we're through, our wire is through the middle of the frame. We're getting to the part where we're going to need, we'll need smaller chip beads, but we're not quite there yet. Like I said, I really just have to throw them all over the table and go from there. So once again, I'm not going to do a really wide bead because this wire and this wire will touch here. When I get to the end, there's more space, so I could use a wider bead. So more narrow beads to start. And then let's see, let's go a little wide, not crazy, a little wide. Let's drop it. Wouldn't it be a tutorial from me if there weren't 1,000 things being dropped? You could call it my signature. Like it's on purpose. Okay, so once again, I got a little space right there I don't love. So let's get another one in there. Let's see if this is too big. I kind of think it is, but you don't know till you try. And it takes 2 seconds to try. And if you're wrong, you're not really wasting a lot of time. I was wrong. It's too thick. Let's find something a little thinner. Here's one. And finding the hole in these can be such a challenge, especially if you're a shaky son of a gun. All right, so there we go. This is our wire that's through the middle of the frame. and we went over here, so we're going under here. Now let's see if I like the way that looks. So we got that, and then so that will be that middle part, and then we'll probably have 2 more zigzags like that. 1, 2. Oh wait, 3. 2 or 3. Let's see what happens. All right, so now we need medium-sized. And once again, at the starting point, I want a more narrow, damn it. I want a more narrow chip bead. I don't want a really wide one in that space because it touches the other wire with the chip beads. But as I get further down to the end, a wider one would actually benefit me because that's where the zigzag is farthest apart. Oh, hey, look, got that one on the first try. So you see how I could just wrap this like that, but you see how it moves so much? That's why we go through the center of the frame and go wrap on the outside. So how cute so far. Love it. See, even that bead right there is technically a little too wide. I don't love it. But for the sake of, I don't care enough to start over, I'm not going to start over. All right, wire goes through. We're going to get 1 or 2 more out of this. I'm not totally sure, but they're going to be small. Okay, you see how these are all like there's little knots in them? The chip beads are not going to go for that. So you can do 2 things. If you don't have a wire smoother, what I do is I take my pliers, let's get bigger ones, and I just open and close all around the little kink until it smooths it out, you know, well enough. So it's a lot of this. But if you have a couple extra bucks or you have a wire smoother, way easier, way better, way smoother. So, you know, if you need to hack it, just open and close a bunch all around that spot, going kind of around. If you've got a wire smoother, just use that. All right, so we're through the frame. I bet we'll get 2 more. And I'm gonna need all little beads. So like at this part, since I only have a few chip beads out right now, I'm gonna make sure not to use my tiniest one because I know I'm gonna need that for the last one that goes in the smallest part of that. And every once in a while, like 1 bead will fit perfectly in a space. This might be such a, oh yeah, look at that. It could kind of have, no, I think it's good. All right. So am I gonna, no, now I think I could use a little bit more. And then, yeah. All right, let's do 1. This looks like a good tiny one to help take up that little bit of space. I found the hole relatively quickly. That's what she said. All right, you know what? I got to put these on opposite because my wide one is at the top and my narrow one is at the bottom, and I need to reverse that. So let's get this on first and then get this on second. Was that even the one I was using? Maybe not. Chip beads, they're so irregular. Okay, so you see if I pull this all the way over here, then that fits perfect, but that doesn't look very even. So I'm gonna push this wire back up here, and then you see I have more space. And I have more room for another little bead or 2. Does that work? And if I don't know, I'll go ahead and put my wire through so it holds the bead there, and then I'll just take a look and see what I think. Sometimes turning it this way, it's easier to see how that balance goes than if I'm always looking at it the way it will be hanging, which is like that. So I think that looks good. And now I need 1 teensy tiny bead to go in that last little spot. Where's the hole? I said, where is the hole? All right, teensy tiny. So we're through the frame. The bead goes in right there, and then we come out and back through, just like if we were doing another line, even though we're not. So now we can see we've got these tips, these, everywhere has a good little space. Now I'm gonna go around. I used way too much wire. All right, I'll tell you how much less I needed on the screen. So go around, and you want the wire to fit right in that little crevice between the two pieces of metal. So now we're really secure. And then just for cosmetic reasons, we're gonna wrap that tip where you can see the welding. And then cut, or undo it all. That's an option. You know, you could just say, hey, I like doing things more than once. And the wire broke. Well, good thing we have enough. That's a thing. If you bend your wire too many times, it can just completely break off like that. Thank goodness it did it with enough left. Maybe even a little too much left. And typically once these are set, they really stay, but you could always do a drop of clear Gorilla Glue on your little ends just to make sure they stay in place. So this is where the end of the wire is. So I'm just gonna make sure it's smashed against its friends and flat. And let's get these out of the way. And there we go. How freaking cute is that? And it's a good way to make it look like you're using a lot of beads because that whole center is filled. But like, we really didn't use that many chip beads, you know? So this, for someone like me who's probably going to sell it, I can still sell it at a very affordable price, even though it is technically full of chip beads. All right, so that's step one. Just get our little guy full of the chip beads. Now, I find it easier to put the chain that I'm going to hang my moon on, any moon, big moon, small moon. I like to find the chain I'm going to hook it on before I do dangles, because if it's held right here and it's straight, my dangles are going to come straight down. But if I do it here and it's curved, the dangles will be at a different elevation. So in the beginning, I would have just said, okay, I want this much here, this much here, this much here. But then whenever it hangs, it's going to hang at an angle. So you need to know what angle that's going to be. All right, so let's get our chain on. We're going to use our jump rings. These are 8mm. I use 8 a lot. Actually, you know what? I'll probably use 6 to attach this chain, and I'll adjust that. But I like 8 because even though people should not hang it by the jump ring, they could. All right, so here's how to open a jump ring. Get your pliers on either side, twist. Don't pull apart, twist. And then get it on. Oh boy, gotta drop 100 things before this works out. All right, there we go. And then our little lobster claw. And I was surprised that little lobster claw will fit on an 8mm jump ring. And then once again, twist back. And then twist a little back and forth. That will harden the metal down here so it all stays really well. So you want to almost not even see where that opening is. It needs to be really together to make sure your chain and your lobster clip don't go through it. All right, and then let's see. Okay, I'm still gonna use an 8 for the main hanging, just because, I don't know, because I work with 8 more and I feel like 6mm jump rings aren't strong enough. I'm sure they are. So 6 or 8 for our hanging the whole thing. And then once again, on either side, twist. I always think it's easier to get the chain on the jump ring first, then put it around the moon. So I got it on here. And then I like when they hang at the side. So I'm gonna hang it right where this wire is. I always try to find one of the wires that's wrapped around and go through that. And it, you know, drop everything. That's part of the process. I almost worry if I don't drop something, like, is it, I used to say that when I did hair. I was like, if I don't drop my brush or my blow dryer or something, I feel like I haven't done something right. All right, and then back and forth until that really closes that little spot. And then hold it up and see how it hangs. So that's hanging way too straight for me. I want it to hang on an angle. So we're gonna take it off and put it somewhere else. So same thing, these are completely reusable if you use them right. Twist, get off of there, and then we'll twist through this one. Or we'll jump ring through this one. And sometimes you have to get them wider. So same thing, I'm not pulling apart, I'm just twisting wider. And I'm gonna go right through where that wire is. And then we just bring it back and go back and forth a little until that little opening is completely together. And now it hangs at a cute little angle. So there's that, nice. And hang it however you want. You know, maybe you want it to hang more straight. That's okay. Now I'm going to set it down parallel to me the way it's gonna hang. So not like this, because it's not how it's gonna hang. It's gonna hang like that. So I wanna make sure whatever I do with this, it's on this angle. And it's still gonna be a game of trial and error. So don't expect it to be too easy. All right. And then I'm gonna pull that back because we're gonna hang, basically, we're gonna jump ring through each one of those wires. And I've been liking, sometimes I do like long, short, long. Sometimes I do short, long, long. Let's do that. Let's go short on the tip and then we'll get longer as we come out here. So the short one, let's see what it looks like at this length. So just break that little in between. It breaks real easy because like I said, it's real gentle. And you can see the little hole in the star where your jump ring will go. And then let's see. It's a little long, so I'm going to take off 1 moon. Go right in between, take it off. So I've still got this little, so now I'm going to take my 6mm jump rings that I forgot to tell you I was using when I first started. But I'll throw some words on the screen that let you know. And then we're going to go right through that tiny little hole. Actually, to be completely honest, I don't know if an 8mm jump ring would go through that little tiny hole. So there's so many that's what she says that I could be saying, but I'm not. Then we're going to get our jump ring, convince it to go in and around here. And we split it open, and now we bring it back closed. All right. And then we're going to check. Well, now I think it's hanging way too much. Let's see what we can do with this. Okay, so I'm taking it off. And now I'm going to go in right where that wire is, but on the outside. I was on the inside, now I'm on the outside. Okay, I like that better. It is in the ether where I told you not to put it, but the weight is pulling it down where it'll stay right there, so it doesn't matter. So let's look at it now. Nice. So I'm going to take it where it's hanging and set it down parallel to me at the exact angle it's going to hang. So there we go on those. And then I like to get the chain lengths figured out before I even worry about putting on the stars. So now we're going to need to be just a tiny bit longer. That looks good. I'd always rather cut it a little too long and then decide I need to cut more off than have it be too short and have to like cut more chain and start all over and blah, blah, blah. All right. And I like hanging it from the star better than from the moon, because the moon is just open. So you just, you know, put your jump ring anywhere in there. I don't know, it just seems more secure. I'm gonna hang the crystal off the moon, so clearly it works. And now I'm gonna go right in where that wire is. And then close. And I always go back and forth a little bit to make sure it's really solid, and then really make sure it's not like even just a little, well, that's too much, even just a little open like that, your chain could get through. So it's really important, if you're not using split rings, which I personally hate split rings, that your opening is really secure. And then pick it up again to check it. And then we're gonna bring it back down right at that same angle. All right, and now this is gonna go on that one. So we're gonna measure it from there. And one thing you can do is, like, that's 2 stars and a moon, that's 2 moons and 2 stars. So I might just need to add another moon or star for this. So sometimes the little pattern can actually be helpful. What's that, 3 moons and a star? Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna go 1 star higher than what I think. And let's say I don't want to, like, let's say you're really struggling with the jump rings, and the last thing you want to do is put some on and then have to take some off. What you can do is open your jump ring, pop your chain on, and then just hold it up to that spot to see what you think. And I don't know, part of me likes it, so I'm glad I went a little too long. So I did a demonstration for myself before I put it on, and I kind of like it. So now it seems worth it to me to go through. So this wire is coming over and then going that way. So there's a little space right in the middle where that wire will hold this jump ring in place. And then we go back and forth a little. And then remember, don't check it like this. Always take it from how it falls hanging. And so actually, I really like that. I think that that looks, it's so hard to show you top down what I need it to look like hanging, but you know what? We get by, and I'll be front forward in a minute to show you if that helps, you know. Sometimes I like fast forward to the end every once in a while, like when I'm watching a tutorial, to like see what the finished piece looks like. That's always helpful. All right, so we feel pretty good about this. So now I'm gonna attach our little stars. Will our stars fit a small jump ring? They're kind of fat stars, and sometimes certain little, like sometimes like these guys, like if you have a really big one of these hexes, you can't use too small of a jump ring or it just won't work. But I'm pretty sure a 6 will work. So go through the whole, oh yeah, not a problem. And then we're gonna just attach it to the very end of our chains, making sure, see there was a little space between that. I'm really gonna make sure it's nice and together and clean. And sometimes I just hit it like this because it just makes sure that the 2 sides are perfectly even. All right. And then, you know, let your chain get tangly and annoying. That's always fun. It's pretty much part of the process, you know. If you're working with chain and you don't get a little annoyed, I don't know if you worked hard enough with it, you know. Chain is an exercise in patience. All right, so this one, there's not a star on the end, there's a moon. So I'm just clicking it through that moon. It's gonna be hanging, so it will stay at the bottom. And then make sure our little pieces are really good. Great. Try not to let them tangle again. We did a much better job this time. All right. And then last baby star. Oh, and this one ends on a moon too. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. There we go. Onto that little moon. And close. And right now I feel like one side of that jump ring is a little higher than the other. So here's a little trick. I'm gonna put a pair of small narrow pliers in, and I'm gonna smash it down and smash the sides. This ensures that this side is not higher than that side. This ensures that no side is further front or back. So now I feel really secure with my jump rings. And then here you go. And then, you know, sometimes I'll get done and I'll be like, well, now that I put the crystal on, I don't love the way these sit. If that's the case, then I'll just go in and adjust however it needs to be. Sometimes I can just pull the wire a little bit and then it hangs where it's supposed to. So I'll pull this, we'll do front facing camera so you can see what this is really supposed to look like. Okay, so now you can see what the finished product looks like. How freaking cute with the little stars and the amethyst beads. And I really like I feel like we got a really nice angle on this that makes sense. It's not like, it looks on purpose, I guess. So there's that. I love it. Hopefully you do too. Let me know if you have any issues.